Once in a while, we all take vacations. We just want to get away from the stress of work, school, or business, and go somewhere we can relax. This must have been the plan of the majority of the passengers on two 747 passenger jets. They were on their way to Grand Canary Islands for a good vacation, but they never got there. People sometimes say that they were in the right place at the wrong time. The Pan Am Flight 1736 and KLM Flight 4805 are a perfect example. For a start, neither of the jumbo jets should have ever been on Tenerife, let alone on the same runway. Please be cautious of the following trigger warnings, details of severe injury and death count. This crash, which has since been considered the deadliest plane accident on record after killing 583 people on board, had quite a lot of contributing factors. How did the incident happen? Let's start from the beginning. Here's everything we know about the true story behind Tenerife's airport disaster. Sequence of events. Neither of the doomed planes should have been on Tenerife Island on March 27, 1977. But as fate had it, they were. They were both heading in the same direction, but from different places. The Pan Am plane had come from Los Angeles via New York City, and the KLM plane from Amsterdam, and both were heading to Gran Canaria, another of the Canary Islands. Shortly before landing, a terrorist incident forced both flights to be diverted to the much smaller and usually quiet Los Rodeos Airport on Tenerife, the largest of the Canary Islands. This diversion was the first unfortunate event that would set the runway calamity in motion, causing many issues. For one, the KLM flight was in danger of exceeding its duty time limits. Air traffic control was forced to handle a considerable amount of traffic since it was a Sunday. The bomb explosion meant that the airport quickly became congested. That wasn't all, however, as patches of thick fog had begun drifting across the airfield, making it very difficult to see whatever was on the other side. After a few hours of being diverted to the overburdened Tenerife airport, it was time for both planes to head to Gran Canaria. To take off, each plane had to taxi down runway 30, get to the end, make a 180-degree turn, and take off in the direction it had taxied from, somewhat similar to how models walk and turn on a catwalk. The Pan Am plane was ready to depart from Tenerife, but access to the runway was being obstructed by the KLM plane and a refueling vehicle. The KLM captain had decided to fully refuel at Los Rodeos instead of Las Palmas to save time. But by the time it had refueled, a heavy fog settled over the airport at Tenerife. The collision occurred when the Pan Am airliner was rolling at one end of the runway, while the KLM 747 was taking off at the other end of the runway. The Pan Am pilots missed the taxiway that they were meant to turn into. They could use the next turn, but it meant that they were on the runway for longer. Breakdown in communication. As a result of the congestion caused by the bomb in the terminal of Gran Canaria Airport, 3 different languages were being spoken by ATC and airline crew members: Dutch, English, and Spanish. Just a few minutes before the crash, the Pan Am aircraft was driven onto the runway while the KLM aircraft was taxiing on the runway. All efforts of the Pan Am captain to delay getting on the runway because of the dense fog was to no avail, mainly because the first of the 2 officers he spoke with was busy on the radio. Maybe he should have just followed his gut, but he didn't, and the captain opted to begin taxiing. As the Pan Am jet headed down the runway, the crew was instructed by ATC to turn onto the taxiway at the exit 3rd to the left. The crew thought that the ATC meant that they should use the 4th exit, which was a standard 45-degree turn. Meanwhile, the pilots in KLM got a route clearance from air traffic control. The route clearance had come unusually late, again due to the unusual circumstances of the day. The KLM pilots mistook it for takeoff clearance. In the final minute before the crash, key misunderstandings occurred, and 3-way communication was abandoned. Further, 2 radios were keyed at the same time, causing a loud, shrill noise for 4 seconds, long enough for the KLM crew to miss a critical transmission to hold off on taking flight. The KLM crew, thinking they were cleared for takeoff and unable to see due to fog, didn't realize that Pan Am was still on the runway. This could have been avoided if the KLM pilot wasn't so much in a hurry to get in the air. But why was he in so much of a hurry? Time pressure. One of the contributing factors to this terrible accident was the strict duty time limits that KLM had put in place to prevent crew fatigue. This policy had put Van Santen under pressure to get the plane off the ground. He knew that if he delayed, It would be his responsibility to find accommodations for all the crew members and all the passengers on board, which would have been inconvenient and expensive. He also knew that the delay would disrupt the plans of the next day in Amsterdam, so he had just one choice: get the plane off the ground. The collision. Due to the bad weather, absence of ground radar, breakdown in communications, and time pressure, Tenerife is now known for the deadliest airport disaster in history. It was only as the KLM jet started thundering down runway 30 towards Pan Am as it tried to take off that the horrible reality of the situation set in. "There he is!" Pan Am Captain Victor Grubbs yelled in a cockpit voice recording. "Look at him! God damn, that son of a bitch is coming!" While First Officer Robert Bragg yelled, "Get off! Get off! Get off!" Captain Grubbs applied full power to the throttles and made a sharp left turn towards the grass in an attempt to avoid the impending collision. It was, however, too late. By the time the KLM pilots saw the Pan Am aircraft, they were already traveling too fast to stop. With that, the two mighty jets collided in a catastrophic crash. The KLM's left side engines, lower fuselage, and main landing gear struck the upper right side of the Pan Am's fuselage, tearing apart the center of the Pan Am jet almost directly above the wing. Although the KLM remained briefly airborne, the outer left engine had been cut off. The inner left engine had ingested a significant amount of shredded materials, and the wings had been damaged. The plane immediately went into a stall, rolled sharply, and hit the ground approximately 500 feet past the collision, sliding down the runway for a further 1,000 feet. To make matters worse, the full load of fuel, which had caused the earlier delay, erupted into a fireball that blazed for hours. Both planes were destroyed. All 248 KLM passengers and crew died, along with the 335 passengers and crew on Pan Am. There were 61 survivors, all on Pan Am, including Captain Victor Grubbs and Robert Bragg. After an investigation into the crash, KLM accepted responsibility after it was found that the captain mistakenly believed he had been given clearance to take off from air traffic control. Settlements to the families and for the damages were estimated at $110 million. Some changes were made regarding aviation. The disaster of March 27, 1977, has since changed several aviation regulations. One part of the investigation found that air traffic control, using the word OK, caused confusion between them and the KLM captain regarding takeoff being allowed. Air traffic control is now required to only use the word takeoff when allowing or canceling the takeoff. Any other time, it must use the word departure. Cockpit procedures were also changed after the accident, with hierarchical relations among crew members being played down. Less experienced flight crew members were not allowed to challenge their captains when they believed something to be incorrect. Furthermore, captains were instructed to listen to their crew and evaluate all decisions in light of crew concerns. Final thoughts. A string of unfortunate events led to what is now known as the deadliest plane crash in history. We feel some of these events could have been avoided and this accident would have never happened. What do you think? Which of the events do you think could have been avoided? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Remember to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to our channel and smash that notification bell. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.